this city, your businesses matter. They matter to the Black Chamber, but more importantly, they matter to this economy. And don't you let anybody tell you different. You are an important investment, and we want to ensure that you sustain yourself and that you pass your legacy on to your children, to your nieces, your nephews, to your family. Yesterday, we gave an award at Minority Enterprise Development, gave an award to all of you No Florences. What better business to emulate? The sustainability of a business in this community for 70 years. And if she did it, you can do it too. So we thank you this morning. So let me give another thanks and shout out to Cox, because they're the ones sponsoring all of this. So we want to, and so right now I'm going to give them a time and a moment to share with you what Cox can do for you.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Thank you guys again so much for getting up and making it here, because this is such an important event and it's such an important community, right? So I just want to take the time. I'm Harriet Snowden. I'm a client relationship executive with Cox Business. So Paul is also one, but what we're here to do, just really wanted to just let you know that please engage the chamber in any of your activities. If you know small businesses or medium businesses starting, send them to the chamber. We have joined the chamber because we want small businesses to know that they have options. Everyone's so used to Cox and residential just calling a number, but as a business, you have negotiations. You have different things that you can leverage as a business. So just really want to let, especially minority businesses, know that there's a different level when you get to business and working with a company like Cox. So Paul and I are both executives and a contact with the chamber that you could always send someone to if they just have questions or need a consultation. It's free. So we could just give you, what works for you and make sure that your business is scalable and the products you have, up or down, whatever you need to do, it could work for your business and for the long term. Go ahead, Paul.
I don't know what to say after that. You did really? Again, just thank you for having us out. We really want to be part of the community. That's why we're here, especially with representation when it comes to small businesses and technology. A lot of you know us just as that cable company or internet provider, but we are so much more, especially when it comes to businesses. We are actually now a very good, and we do it very well, a managed cloud provider. And what that means to you, I'm not going to bore you with all the technology stuff right now, but from your email to security, securing your business, that is very big, and just helping you back your business information up. We do that, and we do it very well. So again, like Harriet said, we have a contact with us right now. We have some business cards out there. Get rid of the 800 number and call us directly, and let us come out and meet with you and sit with you and tell you how we can help grow and help you with your business from a technology standpoint. So again, thank you. Thank you to the chamber for having us, and enjoy the food and enjoy everybody's company. And also, we have a fish bowl there in the back. If you had not put your business card in there yet, please do so. We are doing a drawing at the end here in a little while to give something away. Thank you very much.
Three somethings to give away.
We got three somethings to give away.
Yeah, please put your cards in there. And again, thank you so much for coming and being a part of the chamber.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's get some networking going on right now, right now. Let's talk to somebody. Tell them what you're all about. All right, all right. teacher voice. Class, class. Thank you. I love it, I love it, I love it. So I hate quieting you down, but I need for you all to give Dr. Quentin Hughes a moment to discuss some things with you. So if you would please, we will, Dr. Hughes, come on up. Come on up. Do your due.
Now free.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I guess I'll leave it here. Y'all hear me in the back? All right. Shout out to the Black Chamber for this opportunity today. Yeah. Shout out Spike Coffee. And also shout out again, as Ms. Joanne said, to Florence's for their recent award, and also, as she mentioned, like for 70 years of being sustained as a Black-owned business on the East Side. I know they started on 4th Street and were moved up here, but to still be live and kicking, and to have Miss Florence still in the kitchen sometimes, that's just amazing. It's really amazing, and so we can only hope as business owners to be able to be that sustainable. So as Ms. Joanne said, my name is Quentin Hughes. I'm one of the owners of Kindred Spirits, which is located here. Kindred Spirits is a community gathering space, entertainment, a small outdoor entertainment venue and patio bar that offers programming, cultural programming, Black-owned spirits, vendors, and food trucks in our space. And so we're located right here in the heart of Northeast Oklahoma City. We've been open since April of 2021 in the midst of a pandemic, obviously, and happy to say that we are still here. Yeah, for sure. So I'm happy to be here today, talk a little bit about our journey at Kindred Spirits and lessons learned and things that we think may be applicable to others that are, kind of taking on this risk of small business ownership. The story of Kindred, though, actually kind of begins before we were born, I would say. If you know a little bit about the history of Oklahoma City, of Northeast Oklahoma City, then a lot of you all know, Black folks were only able to live, work, and play in a certain area that was located close to that Deep Deuce area, adjacent to downtown, south of here. But yeah. And so, it was a product it was obviously segregation, but out of that grew opportunity, to have an insular economy, and therefore there was a thriving community that was mixed income, where you saw building types, business types, mixed use. And it was obviously an era that that's probably hard for us to comprehend, because it's not one that we came up in. But as we look back, I guess kind of glowingly at it, we really think about what things could look like if it were like that again. So anyway, Deep Deuce was thriving, and obviously over time, after urban renewal and some other. I don't want to get deep in that. Some forces, other external forces, really changed that dynamic, and there was an exodus. A lot of the Black wealth from the area, and that land became, owned by others. So, one of the last Black-owned businesses in that space, I really fast forwarded big time, was a place that goes by the name of Urban Roots. Raise your hand if you remember Urban Roots. Oh yeah, so I don't really have to say much. So Urban Roots was a place where what they say, arts, culture, and food collided, right? It was really a dope spot, and being a graduate student in the era when that place came to be, a Black graduate student, obviously looking for culture, looking for a place where I felt like I belonged. I really gravitated toward that space. and really form relationships with a lot of folks that were looking for the same thing in that community there at Urban Roots. So I met people that I know today. I met the owners of that space, two of which are Kaya Pennington and Sandino Thompson. It was some folks that you all may know. At the time, I was more of a young, hungry whippersnapper, trying to find, trying to create or be a part of creating culture for folks that were like of my age group who looked like me. But I happened to be a grad student in Norman, obviously at OU. So we weren't really able to find the type of community there that we were looking for. And so we were coming to the city for that, to get that fixed. And so, we started an entertainment group that sought to create and produce events that would attract folks like us, right? And so we started to engage with Urban Roots. And I say I was a young whippersnapper because at the time I'm just a little bit younger than Kaya and Sandino, but I would always be like, hey, I want to, how do we go into business with y'all? Like, how do we become a part of this? How do we? And they were, no, yo, slow your roll. You know what I'm saying? There was so much that I didn't know, that we didn't know. Our first business endeavor was really low risk. We essentially organized, coordinated, and then executed events. So we didn't have overhead of staff. We didn't have a brick and mortar building to worry about. We didn't have bills, you know what I'm saying? And so all we knew was, bringing in profit from those events without understanding the liabilities and the risk. And so they saw that. We didn't see that, even though, we were old enough to be a little bit wiser, but they knew at the time, it's like, hey, maybe it's not your time. At least I like to think that that's why, rather than they just were tired of me and I was annoying. But still, I hung out there weekly, met, like I said, I built all types of relationships, actually met my wife at Urban Roots. So yeah, it means a lot to me. It meant a lot to me as a place. And unfortunately, Urban Roots was another victim of some of those negative consequences of displacement, of gentrification, which is displacement. They had the building they were in was actually black owned. It was the last black owned building, as I mentioned. And then, as Deep Deuce itself was continuing to be gentrified, it almost all the way turned over at that point. Then that owner sold the building. So now it was all the way turned over. There were no more black-owned buildings there. They sold the building. They jacked up the rent on Urban Roots, and they weren't able to be sustained. They weren't able to stay open, and even if they were, it was really they were going to be hustling just to make that landlord more money. So they had to make the decision to close. And I give all that context because Urban Roots is actually the impetus, is like the genesis itself of Kindred Spirits. So fast forward some years, I became more and more engaged with the work of community development here in Northeast Oklahoma City. We started an organization called Northeast OKC Renaissance, Inc., where our mission was to be a catalyst for place-based community development right here in Northeast Oklahoma City. I grew as an individual. I became wiser and I became more connected. And at that point, the opportunity for the East Point development that you're in right now, well, Spiked is one of the businesses in East Point. And I won't go all the way into it, but this development was the first investment of its kind in over like 3 decades in Northeast Oklahoma City. Right, so there was a real significance to it, and then the way that the development was structured in terms of its relationship with the business owners, what it offered was an ability to have ownership in the space, and so we at Northeast Renaissance considered this type of development to be a catalyst type of development because of the kind of the economic model, right, and so. It was something that we wanted to promote, and it was something that I personally wanted to be a part of because what I saw was the future. At the moment that we knew this came online, it being the first of its kind in 30 years over here, we thought if this can be successful, then it can catalyze other similar style, like place-based ethical development along 23rd, and perhaps it propagate throughout the other corridors, right? So Sandino Thompson, who was an owner of Urban Roots, happened to be one of the developers on the project, and he and Kaya both had another concept, right? So it's crazy how things come back full circle, because at that point, when they had this concept, they thought about who's somebody that might be hungry, that might want to help us execute this thing. You know, I was a little bit older, probably a little bit less energy by that time, but at that point, they were finally ready for me to be down, right? For me to be a part of the group, and so I came on board as a part of that group. And so what we see in Kindred is really the next iteration, the representation of lessons learned, but also, you know, the good things that we felt like we found at at Urban Roots. So that's really what Kindred Spirits is an embodiment of. You know, we offer some similar things like the programming that Urban Roots had, but we took away a couple of things that we felt like made it tougher for them, with like dead space, right? So they had maybe 3,000 square foot of space that they had to pay rent on. We decided we want to reduce our footprint dramatically to like a quarter of that footprint, and then have a patio instead of more indoor space that we had to heat and cool. But we also felt like the patio reflected some of the amenities that, you know, the folks, our target audience, had come to appreciate in other parts of the city and other types of venues like that. So I'd say that kind of gives some context behind how Kindred Spirits came to exist. Opening in the middle of a pandemic, I think, really taught us some valuable lessons and really created some unique opportunities for us to grow. But I think that there is a lot to learn, you know, from what we learned there, but also from what we learned even prior to that as we were opening as a business. I talked a little bit about, you know, this being the first development of its kind in over 3 decades. That is not, it's obviously not surprising. And it's not uncommon. You know, I come from a community, I'm actually originally from Little Rock, Arkansas. So I grew up in the 90s during a time when there was a lot of violence, and there was a lot of poverty in communities that I came up in. And I think there were parallels to that in Northeast Oklahoma City, but I saw that deterioration and blight. I grew up in communities where there was deterioration and blight, and I heard stories about the community that my mother grew up in, which was like, you know, more like what I would want to. So I went to college and got to be a part of, you know, go to conferences and stuff in different cities, different urban cores, and what I would see was communities like mine that were being revitalized, you know? And sometimes I would go back home and, you know, during breaks and stuff, and I would see some changes in my community, you know what I'm saying? But I would also, some of the changes were like, yeah, things were looking better, but I wasn't seeing as many of my people, you know what I mean? And then I would project those same, you know, I think those same things were happening in other cities that I was going to, Detroit, you know, DC, you know, San Francisco, you know, wherever there were places where there were black communities in urban cores, you were seeing them being revitalized and people being displaced. And what we feel like Kindred and this development represents is a kind of a contrary model to what to the model that we've been seeing, to that formula that we've been seeing in other communities, where we want to revitalize our own communities. You know what I mean? We want to see our communities improve, but we want to be the ones doing the work and benefiting from the work, right? And we see Kindred as a place. I saw Urban Roots as a place that brings the type of folks together that want to do that work, right? That facilitates that opportunity. But those years of disinvestment really left a lot of, potential business owners, homeowners, future residents vulnerable in terms of like where are you going to get the money to improve your community, right? So a hard lesson we learned about Kindred Spirits before the pandemic was that redlining still exists, right? From a small business standpoint, it took the developers who are white and who do stuff on the west side of the highway all the time, had no problem getting financed. It took them 20 tries to get financing, and then they still had to go basically get a rich cosigner, right? So they did that, and by the time it came time for us to get financing for our business, it took us a year and a half. We tried to actually mitigate that risk. We made decisions to have a larger ownership group. So there were 5 of us, all gainfully employed, homeowners. It took us a year and a half to borrow $135,000. We should have all just got student loans and then just put it in there, right? But that was the challenge, because historically there had been no lending, for business. Right. I still owe some anyway. So I had to learn through that process. I had to persevere, obviously. I also had to learn how to navigate, just that loan application process, those relationships, those banking relationships. There's just some nuances to it that you really don't get to until you have to do it. Like, what does it look like to format your business plan differently, based on the bank that you're applying with, right? Or the program that you're applying with. What is it to understand what their criteria are and kind of write to that, right? Just like, it's kind of like school when you knew what your professor was looking for or whatever, but you think, if you don't get that experience, you think, oh, just a business plan, just put together a business plan with all these things and throw it out there. But no, you have to tailor those things. You have to have a certain way of following up. You have to have a certain, approach. And you also have to understand, we just came to understand that the system isn't currently built, right, for us to be able to take advantage of. So we have to do more to learn how to take advantage of that system, right? But also, we have to learn how to create alternative access to capital in our own communities, right? People come to Kindred now hey, how can I invest? I got a couple dollars. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, well, I want your money, but I don't really know how to put that together yet, right? Well, we need to be figuring out how to do that. You know what I'm saying? We need to be figuring out how do we pull a fund together. But anyway, so we learned that lesson. And then we had to learn a number of other lessons. I don't know how I'm doing on time because I'm just kind of rambling at the moment. So yeah, I need to wrap up. So we learned that lesson along with a number of other lessons, I would say. But I would say for us, in closing, I think, small business ownership obviously, has a wealth building motive. But I think of Kindred Spirits and Urban Roots as more like social entrepreneurship ventures. And you need to be able to support those too. And so I forgot what I was getting at, but essentially our purpose was really about bringing folks together just like this to facilitate future opportunities. So I want y'all to think about that as potential business owners. Not only your impact, on your bottom line and wealth building, but also the necessity of your work to the redevelopment of our localized entrepreneurship ecosystem, and really look at that as a motive as well, because it is absolutely necessary not only to individually create opportunity to build wealth for yourself, but if you look at the gaps that exist between us and other groups in this society, it is absolutely necessary for us to be forming our own businesses, to plug into these ecosystems so that we can continue to, so that we can recreate that circular economy that existed in Deep Deuce. So that's all I got. Thank you for my time.
All right, we're going to do the drawing from Cox Business. Did everyone get a chance to put in their business card? Last chance, last chance. Thank you to Quentin. Thank you to Brittany for hosting. Thank you to Joanne from the Black Chamber. What else did I want to say? Oh, also I want to say thank you to Andy's Donuts. She's in Edmond, Black business donut shop. She provided the breakfast sandwiches that we provided today, as well as Brittany for providing the fruit, pastries, and coffee. Here we go. Okay. Tashara Houston. So we actually have three. Tashara, we actually have three. So that's the first one. We want to go ahead with the second one. Okay. TK Lovelace. Yeah, you already heard it. All right, and this is our grand prize. We have Alicia Barlow. Oh, Ms. Barlow. Hey, I like it. Yes. All right, we're turning it over to.
All right, cool. We want to say thank you to everybody. I'm JD Baker. I'm on the board for the Black Chamber of Commerce. I'm also on the committee for MED Week. So this is best of both worlds for me. So thank you so much for joining us. We want to thank our sponsor, Cox, for being here and doing this for us. We also want to give a great thanks to the East Point Development, especially Brittany Hunter, the owner of Spike Coffee. Now, I don't know if this was your first time at Spike Coffee, but make sure it's not your last. We must support our Black business owners, our minority business owners all across our community. So please don't let this be the last time I see you here at Spike.
Yes, when we welcome you to take some free headshots in the back, we have PJ there. And also, please visit OKCMed.biz for the rest of the programming. We have a happy hour today at the Innovation District at Automobile Alley. First 50 persons get a free drink, and we have appetizers sponsored by the Asian District. I hope to see y'all there. Thank you all so much. There's also a lot of free goodies on the counter. Please make sure to take some.